Hey, next on the T Nation, thanks for coming back and tuning in to part 2 of episode number 42, featuring my conversations with a couple of former Pro Bowl quarterbacks, Gus Frerotte and Chris Miller. Both guys have been wonderful supporters of ours over on the Thursday Night Tailgate Show. They're both in our Guest Hall of Fame. Gus is a local Pittsburgh boy. He was born in Ford City. He played in the NFL for several years. A lot of great teams that he was a part of. We'll talk about his playing career, also get his thoughts on the Steelers and their quarterback room, because Gus was a part of a quarterback room as a rookie when he was drafted in the 7th round, but the Commanders had also drafted Heath Shuler with the number 3 overall pick in that draft, and Gus beat him out. So we're going to talk about that, plus a whole lot more. We'll get into some of his favorite pro-ams that he has been a part of over the course of his playing career and now as well. So a lot to get into with Gus. And then I'm joined by Chris Miller. Chris was a tremendous college and pro football quarterback. He played for the University of Oregon in college and is in their Athletics Hall of Fame. Went on to play for the Falcons, the Rams, and the Broncos in the NFL. Had a Pro Bowl season as well. We'll talk about that. Plus, I want to get into his time here on the golf course because he had an opportunity when he played in Atlanta to go play over at Augusta National. He did that more than once, and also had an opportunity to bring his father there. So looking forward to hearing that story. So thank you so much for coming back and tuning in and making Next on the Tee a part of your regular golf content. Sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. Before we get started, I want to remind you about our friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants.
Every January, PGA Tour Superstore pros meet every manufacturer, learn about the latest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls. All so they can get you the perfect fit.
All right, now back with me is former Pro Bowl quarterback Gus Frerotte. Gus is from a small town, Ford City, just outside of Pittsburgh. He's been a wonderful friend for many years, sharing his insights on the NFL, his former team, plus what goes on in the mind of a quarterback. He had an outstanding 15-year career in the NFL. He's a guy who worked hard to go from being a 7th-round draft pick to quickly beating out the number 3 overall pick in the draft to get the starting job in Washington. He was selected to play in the Pro Bowl in 1996 when he threw for nearly 3,500 yards, back in a time when that was a really high number of yards to throw for in the game. In 2018, he was inducted into the Allegheny-Kiski Valley Sports Hall of Fame. A year later, he became a member of our Thursday Night Tailgate Guest Hall of Fame, and I'm honored he is with me here this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Gus, how are you, my friend?
Great, Chris. How you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Hey, before we get into things, you celebrated a birthday back on July 31st. Happy belated, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. 53 and gray. What else could you ask for?
Indeed, I feel you, my friend. Gus, we are 3 weeks away from the start of the NFL regular season, and as you know, this show is available on the Pittsburgh Tribune review site at triblive.com. So I want to get your thoughts on the Steelers' upcoming season, because you've been in a similar situation that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are in. You've been in a quarterback room like that. What do you think is going to happen this season looking ahead? Can those guys do okay together in the same quarterback room along the same sidelines? How do you see that gelling?
Yeah, it's an very interesting situation where Russell's a proven winner, but also is 35 and, he still wants to play and compete just like the rest of us do. It's not the money for him at this point as Denver gave up the bank for him. But, it's more about going out and winning. And what a better place to try and do that than Pittsburgh. And you know what it's all about to be a Steelers fan and to be a Yinzer. And so we have two new guys trying to take the helm at quarterback for the Steelers, and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And you look at Justin Fields and you say, man, this guy has a ton of talent, strong arm, can run, makes people miss when he runs. He's got all the ability. Now, can he get some coaching to help him be a better decision maker so he doesn't have those turnovers? So I hope in my heart of hearts that Russell Wilson is teaching him, is bringing him along and trying to, not say this is my team, just stand by and watch, but just saying, hey, stick with me. Let's see what I'm doing. I might not be able to do everything I used to, but I'd love to share it with you. So I hope that's the case, because everyone knows usually in an NFL season, it takes two quarterbacks.
Did anyone do that for you when you were a young quarterback?
Yeah, there were guys that definitely brought me along, would share their knowledge with me, and then there were definitely guys that were tight-lipped and didn't want to share it because they were competing. And I always took the attitude when I played that I was going to share my knowledge and help anybody that I could, because first of all, we were a team. Second of all, we're competing. And third, you still have to beat me out.
Gus, we all know Mike Tomlin's resume of never having a losing season. As a former player, when you see that, does that make Pittsburgh a place that you want to come to play in? Because you may be in the mix until the end of the season every year, or does the fact that they haven't won a playoff game in almost a decade now make the Steelers a team you would consider only if you didn't draw interest from some of the top teams around the league right now, like a Kansas City or San Francisco, Buffalo, Baltimore, Dallas, Philly, those teams that make a deep playoff run? What is your thought as a free agent looking at the Steelers as an opportunity to go play there?
They're right in it every year. They've had injuries. They've had, other guys retire. They've been trying to figure it out for the past so many years, but they have an ownership that's been around since the beginning. And they're committed. And I think the great thing about the Rooneys is they know that, they don't have to jump ship right away. They're not going anywhere. This is how they run things. I think they do it. They run the organization a great way. They have a good coach in Coach Tomlin that can not only deal with the press, but also deal with the players and do all the other things you have to do as a head coach. And I think as a free agent quarterback coming into to Pittsburgh, you look at it saying, okay, the fan base is incredible. The Steelers have always been a top-notch organization, and to be a part of the black and gold would be amazing. But then you look at, okay, they always have a top 10 defense every year, and then are they going to improve their offensive line? And I think they did that tenfold, and they added some good linemen this year. So if I'm a quarterback, I always want a good line and a good defense.
No doubt. As you look over all the teams that you had an opportunity to play for, who of those, which one do you think is in the best position to make a Super Bowl run?
Oh, that's a good question. Out of all those teams that I played for, I would say right now it might be Miami. I think they have a lot of the components that you need. I think they have a young team. They have a young coach with a great imagination. And, can they stay healthy? And the big question for me is I think Tua has the talent, but can he pull through when they need him in the big games?
Gus, as you take a look at over the last several years, the rules of the game have really turned it into a quarterback wide receiver league. Those positions are making crazy amounts of money nowadays. Could you have imagined a time when you were in the league that quarterbacks would be making $40, $50 million a year?
No, you always look back and everybody that came before you always says that, even when I was coming out, and I remember Heath Shuler got a contract, and the old guys like Sonny Jurgensen and Joe Theismann and all those guys Doug Williams were like, man, if I would only played today, but it was a lot of money, but then you look at what these guys are making and getting guaranteed. And I think the guaranteed part is so big because nobody had that before. You might have had your signing bonus guaranteed, and there was a way to, not everybody got a big signing bonus. So when you see things that are guaranteed and, 250 million and 200 of it's guaranteed for guys, that's an amazing thing. And believe me, I'm not. I want everybody to make money, and as a player, you always say, what if? What if I would have been, you know? And I think my kids always tell me that too. Dad, why didn't you play today instead of back then? I said, well, you wouldn't be here if I did. So, um, but it's amazing the money that's going around. It's a business, and the rules are changing the game to help everyone hopefully stay healthy. But I don't know if they do that. It's still a tough physical game, and the guys are just bigger, faster, stronger than they ever have been.
Guess I've maintained that even with how much the rules do favor quarterbacks and wide receivers, that a great running game and a great defense can still win championships. Baltimore is a run first team. San Francisco was third in rushing offense last year. Detroit, Miami, Buffalo, Philadelphia, all top 8 teams in rushing offense. And those same teams were in the top 10 in total defense as well. To me, run and stop the run, which is, 3 yards in a cloud of dust from back in the 70s and 60s and all that sort of stuff. Well, I still think it can work in this era. Am I crazy?
No, it does work. I think you're right. Except for Baltimore, when they got to the playoffs, they didn't run at all. And that's why they lost. But, when I look at it, I think it is important to have a great running game. But on top of that, you have to have explosive plays, right? So your passing game, you have to have a good running game, but your passing game has to come through and have explosive, those plus 15 plays, and you have to have a bunch of them. And that's how you know, teams are going to come up, they're going to try and stop the run. So you can't just throw a hitch and, be happy with 6 yards. You might as well just run the ball. And that's kind of where the Steelers have been the last few years, I feel like, where it's been
Yeah.
dink and dunk and not really explosive. And when you watch like Patrick Mahomes and some of the other guys, when those teams come up and play the run and they check, or they know what they got, and you got to be on the money. You got to go for the jugular at that point and hit those big plays to put that pressure on the defense. Because if you can't do that, the defensive coordinator is just always going to put enough guys on to stop the run, and he just has confidence to play man to man and maybe give you a couple of defensive looks and blitz. And he knows that he got you. But if you can put pressure on a defensive coordinator, make him guess and make him struggle a little bit, then that's where you want to be as an offense.
So let's take that a step further for the Steelers. What do you think that Arthur Smith has got to do as the new OC? Is this got to be a team that now opens it up a whole lot more? Because to your point, over the last couple of years, you stuff a whole bunch of guys in the box and you were daring Kenny Pickett to try to beat you, and rarely did he do it unless it was late in the fourth quarter. Now you've got to come out and set a different tone, do you not?
Yeah, you really do. And you have to, there's so many things that go into that. Obviously, you want the big explosive plays, and those come a lot of times when teams are blitzing. So you have to be on top. You saw Kenny Pickett, as I did last year, when always looked great protection and didn't have enough time to get the ball downfield. But there's a lot that goes into that. So Arthur Smith, I think his job this year will be obviously calling good plays at good times, understanding the team he's playing and the kind of defense they run, and then also putting your team in the right position. You have plays. Every defense coordinator had plays or offense coordinator has plays that he wants to run. But if you don't have the talent to run those plays, you have to come up with other ways to provide your talent with the top playmaking ability. And I think that's what it is. They have to be able to make plays, and he has to do a good job of putting his key players in the right position. So if it's a motion to get a guy onto a different defensive back, you scheme like that. Every team has a 1 and 2 corner, and then 3 and 4 and 5 are playing nickel and dime. And how do you get your best receiver against those guys? And those are the kind of matchups that I think Arthur Smith has to come up with, but he also has to teach his team how to look for those and how to understand how to do that.
Yes, one of the many reasons why we have loved having the alumni players on our show on the Football Side Thursday Night Tailgate is too many young listeners don't know what the game used to be like. Like I mentioned in your intro, you threw for 3,500 yards in 1996. That was sixth in the league. Last season, it would have been good for 17th. Many times people don't understand how coverage rules and the protection of the quarterback has changed over the years. How much better do you think your numbers might have been if you would have had an opportunity to play under the current set of rules?
I mean, I think anybody who comes in and the rules are a little different where you're not, I mean, I can remember you're throwing the ball and you're watching it, and receivers catching it, and then you're getting hit. I mean, the game has changed a lot. Concussion protocols different. There's so many things that are different. DBs can't grab and hold as much. It's more of an offensive game. So you can always you watch so many times. It's even frustrating for me because I play fantasy football and the offense throws a deep one and defense is holding or pass interference, and it goes downfield 50 yards, and then they win the game on a field goal. And it's like, what, that it's that easy, and you see that stuff and you're like, yeah, the rules have changed because it's a business and it's exciting and people want points. And you mentioned 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Those are good in certain situations. And I think that helps you win games, but that's not overall what the NFL is about and necessarily what the fans want to see.
Gus, when you had your show Huddle Up with Gus, you interviewed Matthew McConaughey. And I was surprised to learn that he was a Washington Commanders fan. He grew up outside of Dallas, went to the University of Texas. When you got to spend some time with Matthew, what are some of the things you learned from him that kind of surprised you like that one surprised me?
Well, yeah, he's definitely a very interesting individual and character. I mean, amazing actor, um, incredible mind to be able to go and do all the different kind of acting and characters that he's played. But things when I talk to him on the podcast, why did you like Washington, right? And then you find out, well, I loved hamburgers, and there was a linebacker for Washington named Chris Hamburger. So that's why I started liking Washington. So those little things, and then you find out that he went to Australia and lived with a family down there when he was in high school and things like that, that just, you wonder why he is who he is. And then you start putting all these stories together, and that's really what makes him interesting. And he has, when I interviewed him, his book just came out, and it's pretty interesting to read because it reminds you, how he talks slow and he has a little kind of a draw when he talks and things like that. And when you read the book, it really comes through that way. So, I think if you really want to learn, he puts a lot about his history and his story in that book, and it's pretty good.
Guess this is the golf show, so I got to ask you a couple of golf questions. And you've played in your fair share of pro-ams over the years. What are some of your favorite tournaments that you had an opportunity to play in?
Oh gosh, I haven't played in a while. I missed the Steelers tournament this year, which is always a lot of fun here, even though I never played for the Steelers, but it's nice that they invite me. But back, when you're playing, you get to play in a lot of different things. And I'm trying to think, there was the Cadillac that they had in New Jersey. I used to play in that. That was a lot of fun. And I always enjoyed going down to Dan Marino's tournament. And then every team you played on, somebody always had a charity event, and usually it was golf, right? That you could go and be a part of. So played in a lot of events like that, and they're always fun, and they're always very enjoyable. To go out and play and meet new people and get to swing as hard as you can, and probably not how you would typically play, but one thing I just have to mention, since you mentioned tournaments, that with our new alumni media network, we started a golf tour that used to be that's very similar to the old one, that alumni could come and play in. And Fred McQuarrie and Terrell Buckley are going to be running our golf tour, and they had their first event down in Atlanta. And it's basically for former players, and there's going to be a purse for them. And they're doing the Stableford system, and we're really excited about it. So 25, it'll really take off, and you'll be able to see more about it. But we had guys like Jerome Bettis, Derek Brooks, Ray Buchanan. I'm trying to think of all the guys that were in it off the top of my head. And then we had several former NBA players playing it. So everybody, when they finish, they love to play golf. And a lot of them do a lot of charity work. And they compete when they go out. But, when you play in these events, you don't get to, guys will play one or two guys against each other, and you play in an event, and it's a lot of fun. But these tours give them a competition against their peers. And instead of gambling, they actually play real golf, and you go and have fun. And we view it as a great way to collect incredible content of, guys smack talking on each other But because there's nothing better when you got a Hall of Famers ripping on other Hall of Famers because their golf game's so bad. So it's been a lot of fun, and the events are interesting. And I think just golf is it's a hard sport. It's a mental sport, and I think it's a way that guys can not we're so used to beating up our bodies that we can go out and just enjoy our time and keep playing as you get older and still be competitive.
Guess just a couple more before I let you go. Staying on the golf topic, what are some of your favorite local courses there around Western Pennsylvania?
Well, my son Gabe, he works for Tri-State PGA, and he's one of their tournament directors. So since he's been doing that for quite a few years now, I've gotten to play a lot of the courses, and there's so many that you don't realize. And I wish we had some more, but I don't know if you've ever played it or been up there, Stonewall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
course. I mean, obviously, I think it's one of the top public courses in Western PA, if not the state. But it's so much fun. We really enjoy going up there. Obviously, we have so many good private courses and public courses. There's Totteridge. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. My hometown course in Fort City, which was called Lenape Heights for a long time, closed. Somebody bought it and turning it into a rehab facility, which I was super sad about. And close to me is Birdfoot. There's Cranberry Highlands. So there's a plethora, I would say, of not great, incredible courses, but fun courses. They're not obviously to the standards of Oakmont, but it's still there's a hole, there's a tee, and you got to kind of make it to that hole somehow or another. And so it's just always fun. And the great thing for me is my sons are here, so we get to play a lot of golf together, and it's really enjoyable.
That's fantastic. Gus, you've done some great things as a member of the NFL Alumni Association, particularly up there in the Pittsburgh chapter, plus the Alumni Media Network that you've made mention to. Talk about the great things that you've got going on.
Yeah, so the Alumni Association, I haven't been doing as much, but I'm partnered with a gentleman, Craig Richardson, and we started Alumni Media Network. And really what it was, because I was podcasting like you do, and we knew that there were so many incredible stories from our former athletes out there that we needed a way to help them. And the NFLPA, the NFL Alumni Association, any of the alumni organizations weren't really doing anything to help guys. They might, if somebody was really good at it already, they might pay them to come in and do a podcast or a story or whatever. But we wanted to help guys create content no matter what their skill level was. And because, Chris, if you get somebody on and they're having fun and they're very comfortable, you're going to get some incredible stories out of them. And the thing about it was some guys love to talk about the teams they played for or the colleges they played for, but some guys have a new passion, just like Fred and Terrell love golf. And so they play golf, they talk about golf. That's all they want to talk about. They put football in it. I mean, they'll do some, but our guys are very passionate about things when they come out, whether they're a hobby or they're a collector of something. Gilbert Brown, he's a Mopar guy. He loves collecting Mopar cars. You know what I mean? So our guys do all kind of things, and it was our goal to really help them and support them to do all the work that needs done to be successful, to create content. And that it's not easy to do that. It takes a lot of work. So we've been able to build a staff and get some interns to help a multitude of people do that now. And we just signed a new group, Baron Davis's company, former NBA player Baron Davis, and his company is coming on board now. So there'll be even more content and more people coming along. And it's for us, it's just supporting our guys and being able to, distribute their content in any kind of way that they want to do it. Some guys love short form, some guys love long form, some guys just want to do like guest appearances, just like this. So we try to support them in any way they need. So it's been a lot of fun, and anybody can check it out at alumnimedia.com.
Well, Gus, before I let you go, on top of checking it out at alumnimedia.com, how else can they stay up to date with the great things you're doing, whether it's following you on social media or someplace else online?
Yeah, personally, it's just at Gus Frerotte. I'm on most, except I'm not on X anymore, Twitter. I haven't been on that in a while. But on most anything else, it's just at Gus Frerotte. And then for the company, it's at Alumni Media, and sometimes at Alumni Media Net, because sometimes names were taken. So we had to squirrel around a little bit to find the right one. But it's been a lot of fun, and anybody can reach out to me, and if there's anybody listening that has any questions, my email is on the site, gus@alumnimedia.com, and people can email me and ask me any questions they want or whatever they need.
Well, Gus, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. It's always so much fun to have you here with me and to talk a little football and talk golf on top of that. I hope we get this privilege of catching up with you maybe a little bit later on in the season.
Yeah, if you get over to Pittsburgh, let me know,
I will absolutely do that.
especially if you go to the Oakmont Bakery. I'm right up the hill.
All right. Good to know that too.
All right, buddy.
Gus, take care, my friend.
Thank
All the
you.
best in your family.
All right, you too. Thank you so much.
See you, Gus.
Bye.
That is a great Gus Frerotte, folks, and just a wonderful guy. Has meant a great deal to us over the years on the football side on Thursday Night Tailgate. Again, be sure to check him out at alumnimedia.com and at gusfrerotte.com as well. Great player, great human being, and a guy that's out there doing some great things now for the alumni players that is very near and dear to my heart and to my partner's heart over on the football side, Bob Lazari. Hopefully we'll catch up with Gus as well a little bit later on in the season. Coming up next is another former Pro Bowl quarterback and a wonderful friend of the show, Chris Miller. Before I bring Chris into the show, let's talk about our friends over at Squares Golf. And folks, do you sway and you're off balance in your golf swing? You know what? It could be your shoes. A golf shoe needs structure to provide stability and reduce sway. How can you tell if your shoes lack structure and are hurting your game? If you can hold your shoes by the toe and heel and twist it, toss it. Squares was designed for the perfect balance of structure and comfort. Isn't it time you tried Squares? Try the new Speedbolt at squares.com. That's SQAIRZ.com.
Frustrated with your golf game? Imagine playing with total confidence. Join me, LPGA Pro and golf mindset expert Debbie O'Connell, for my Conquer Your Golf Mind Challenge. Bill cuts 6 strokes, and Lori is club champion. What's your goal? Click the link or text NEXT to 727-339-0106. Use code NEXT for $20 off. Your tee time for transformation is now. Will you take the shot?
All right, now back with me is another former Pro Bowl quarterback, Chris Miller. Let me remind you about Chris's background. He's from Pomona, California. Played high school football at Eugene Sheldon High in Eugene, Oregon. Went on to play his college ball at the University of Oregon, where he remains 7th all-time in passing yards and 9th in touchdown passes. In 1999, he was inducted into the University of Oregon Athletics Hall of Fame. And in 2005, he was inducted into the State of Oregon Sports Hall of Fame. He was a first-round draft pick, the 13th overall selection in 1987 by the Atlanta Falcons, and he played in the league from 87 to 1999 for the Falcons, Rams, and Broncos. He was named to the Pro Bowl in 1991, and he led the Falcons to their first playoff appearance in nearly a decade that year. Over the course of his NFL career, he threw for 19,320 yards and 123 touchdowns. He was an offensive coordinator for the Houston Roughnecks in the XFL for a few years, and now he is a member of our Thursday Night Tailgate Guest Hall of Fame, and I've got my Chris Miller shirt on as we speak, and I couldn't be more excited he is back with me again this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Chris, how are you, my friend?
You must have done a quick wardrobe change from the Frerotte to the Miller real quick.
I had to. I got both of them. You're darn right I did.
Well, it was really good to listen to Gus at the tail end of that, a former fellow quarterback, and thanks for having me, man. It's been a while, and I always look forward to visiting with you both.
I appreciate you. So I got to tell you, I wished Gus a happy belated birthday. His was on July 31st. Yours was just a couple of days ago on the 9th. Happy belated, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much. Deion Sanders, my boy Prime, and I share the same birthday, so that's kind of a cool little piece of nostalgia. But thank you.
So, Chris, catch us up. It's been a minute, like you said, since I got to have you as part of the show. What's been going on with you?
You mentioned the XFL. That was awfully fun. We had a good run going in Houston, and then COVID hit, so I came back to Eugene, Oregon, and I was back up coaching some high school football at Westland High School up in the Portland area. Won a couple state championships up there, and that was extremely enjoyable. Then my dad got a little bit older, so I moved back down to Eugene, about 5 minutes from my parents' place, and was keeping an eye on them, and he passed, almost made 92, so he had a great run, and now I keep an eye on my 85-year-old mom, and I'm I'm training about 11 quarterbacks right now. They all start their seasons this next Monday, so I've been cranking on that and doing some football camps. I'm doing some philanthropy in town to help kind of pay it forward to the community, and then I've also branched into a company called NILX, and we're in the NIL space, represent some athletes. So I'm keeping busy enough, but I still have control of my schedule. So it's a win-win right now.
Good for you. As we talk about the XFL, and I think it's been rebranded now into the UFL, but how do you feel about the direction of spring football?
I tell you what, it was a great product in 2020. That season, I think the attendance was great in like San Antonio and Seattle and St. Louis, and we were averaging just under 20,000 fans in Houston. So I think the brand was great at that point in time. Then I know the USFL came back. There was actually a spring football league that went down for a little while. Then the USFL came back a couple of years ago, and then the USFL and XFL kind of went toe to toe. And then they morphed into the UFL now. And I think, frankly, they lost a little bit of steam this last spring. I don't think there was maybe as many named players, former NFL players that were playing in the league. And I saw the attendance was down low in St. Louis. I still think it was awesome, and maybe San Antonio. But the quality of football is good. The coaching's good. It's on television. I don't think the viewership was near what it was, back when it was the XFL in 2020, that iteration, or even the USFL for that year. But there's a necessity and a need for it. There's so many good football players out there that aren't playing or don't have a place to play if they're not up in Canada or don't stick on an NFL roster. Or, there's obviously arena football leagues and stuff, but the spring league is needed. It's a great developmental league, and it's great for, development of player personnel, people, and coaches. So it's definitely needed.
Chris, you spent the majority of your career here in Atlanta with the Falcons, and they went out and signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million contract, which included
Man,
a $50 million.
these guys are making so much money. Oh,
right?
Yeah. I need a loan.
Kurt got a lot of money, got a lot of guaranteed money, $100 million guaranteed, $50 million signing bonus. But then they went out and drafted Michael Penix, quarterback out of Washington, with a number 8 overall pick, and which kind of was a head scratcher for me, Chris, since they have so many other glaring needs. And now all of a sudden you got Kurt, and you're going to carry this kid for at least, you would think. I mean, Kurt signed a 4-year deal. At least he's going to be carrying him for three years, maybe even all 4. I don't know. It's just, I couldn't understand why they would go that direction. What were your thoughts?
I tell you what, man, I really like Michael Penix, or Penix Jr., however you say it. I watched him when he was at Indiana, and he really caught my eye. He was very talented and threw a great ball. Unfortunately, he had a few injuries at Indiana. Then he came up to Washington, and the Huskies beat us Ducks. I'm a former Oregon Duck player, and they beat us not only once, but they beat us twice last year and took us out of the Final Four. Of course, Washington made the national championship against Michigan last year. But, Michael's got a big hand. He's got a size 11 hand. He just holds the football like it's a toy in his hand. And I was thinking about this earlier in case we talked about it, but I think he may be the best deep ball college thrower ever to play the game. I mean, just his ability to throw the ball vertically down the field, the high arcing throws, the back shoulder fades. Roma Doomsday, I got to know him a little bit. He spoke very highly of Michael. And so, I can see Atlanta, you got Aaron Rodgers came off the Achilles tear. And obviously he did that on the 4th play in game 1. Kirk's was a little bit later in the season. I think Kirk's about 36, 37 now. So in terms of quarterbacks, he's kind of getting up there in years. So, and I know they signed a few key free agents, but I think Michael fits what they want to do. I think the diversity is big, especially in that city. And I think Michael Penix is a big time quarterback. I mean, he had a really good first preseason game. I saw some of the throws he made, and he's a very poised guy, mature guy, much like Bo Nix, who was at Oregon. They're a little bit longer, and they played longer in college. So But you look at guys like Jordan Love and guys that have developed behind a frontline guy for 2 or 3 years, and you see what Jordan Love's doing now, or Aaron Rodgers, for example, when he was behind Brett Favre. So, I think it's a good scenario, to be honest. I think Atlanta felt like their defense was pretty stout. They needed to get a pass rusher. After they went to the Super Bowl the one year, they lost 3 offensive linemen. So I think they're fulfilling some needs in the O-line. I think they feel really good about their run game. Their wide receiver core is strong. Of course, they have a good young tight end that's extremely talented. So you bring in a plug and play guy like Kirk Cousins that's had the success he's had. I think they feel really good about where they're at. And you got your future sitting right there, and there's no guarantees in later drafts that there's going to be a guy like Michael Penix Jr. that comes along. So I like the pick.
You mentioned your Oregon Ducks. You guys are preseason ranked number 3. A guy who started out at a place where I went to college, UCF, Dillon Gabriel, transferred again from Oklahoma out to Oregon. What are your expectations for him and your Ducks this season?
Man, what a good kid. And some of these kids are chasing signing bonuses. It's not a bad deal to enter the transfer portal. DJ Uyongalele, who was at Clemson and then was just up at Oregon State. He's at Florida State now. And you mentioned this is Dillon Gabriel's third stop. But I think what colleges are seeing, we just had Bo Nix at Oregon for 2 years. And I think he threw like 74 touchdowns and maybe 10 interceptions in the 2 years he was with us. Set an all-time NCAA completion percentage record this last year at like 77.4% or some amazing number. But, these guys are kind of plug and play, ready-made, ready to go, have experience under their belt. I think Bo Nix was maybe 25 his senior year, so very mature. And that's kind of the way some colleges are approaching their quarterback room, is finding a guy like, Bo Nix goes on to the NFL. He was a 12th pick with Denver. And then we go out and get Dillon Gabriel. And there were some ties there and some connections to the University of Oregon. Now we have another mature guy who performed at a high level at UCF and Oklahoma, so he's battle tested and ready to go. He's just got to learn a new system and scheme. And he's very well liked here. I know he's had a great spring and great summer so far, and we're loaded with talent. So we're excited to move to the Big Ten, and we've got some great competition, some new rivalries. So I'm excited, and we feel good about Dillon being our quarterback.
Speaking about Bo Nix, he, to your point, was the top draft pick of the Denver Broncos. Do you think he can go in there and become the franchise quarterback quickly?
I think he can. He might even be 26 now. I think he's had a birthday since he's been there, but he's a very mature guy. I always laughed at the quote unquote experts that questioned his arm strength. I went to an Oregon practice once a week and watched him work and went to his pro day, and that dude can throw the football, man. He's got a live arm. He can make all the throws. He's extremely cerebral. He controlled a lot of Oregon's offense at the line of scrimmage. The tight red zone package was pretty much, giving him 2 or 3 plays and letting him get us in the right situation, right play. And that really translates to what Sean Payton does. You can remember how much interaction Drew Brees had with their offense when they were in New Orleans together. So Bo is very cerebral. He's very mature. He gets the ball in and out of his hand quickly. He's extremely accurate, good decision maker. So I think he'll fit well there. I know Jared Stidham from New England. I think he was maybe somewhere else. I think he was maybe in Denver last year, but he's there as well to compete against. And I think they have one other good quarterback, the young man from BYU who was with the Jets last year. So, their quarterback room's pretty full right now. But they didn't take Bo at 12 to sit on the bench for too long. So, I think he's going to be a good frontline starter, and it'll be interesting to see when he gets on the field.
You talked a moment ago about Penix getting to sit for a couple of years. And when you got drafted in 87, the Falcons had Scott Campbell, David Archer, and Eric Kramer all on the roster at the time. Was it helpful getting to sit behind them and watch and learn a little bit until later on in the season when you got in there? Or would you have preferred to get in there right away?
Well, you know what, man? That was the strike year in 1987. So there were about 13 or 14 of his first-round draft picks. We didn't sign till Halloween. We signed on Halloween Day. So when I signed with the Falcons, we were 2-7. And when I went there, there wasn't very much excitement in the building. Matter of fact, a lot of the guys were kind of, looking forward to the end of the season. So it really wasn't a true rookie year. I kind of got thrown to the Wolves later in the year. I played in the second half at the LA Rams and against the San Francisco 49ers, and then kind of a garbage game in Atlanta against Detroit, where I think there were only about 10,000 fans there on Christmas Day. So it wasn't a real glorified rookie year. So really, I kind of look at my first year as being 1988. So, and then I was the starter going into that camp. So my rookie year was kind of a unique year.
Chris, just a couple more before I let you go. And like I say, this is a golf show, so I want to get a little bit on the golf side. And as I recall, when you were here, you actually got to play Augusta National along with your father. Do I remember that correctly?
Yes, you do. I was really fortunate. I had a gentleman when I got drafted by Atlanta, he left a manila envelope on my chair in the locker room. And he said if I used him as a realtor, he would get me on Augusta National to play. I couldn't call him fast enough. So he got me on Augusta twice. And then we met another gentleman down there. We did a Boys and Girls Club event to help do a fundraiser down there. Mike Ken and I, former left tackle for the Falcons. And I got to play Augusta 4 times, man. I was extremely fortunate. Played with my dad a couple times. Took a couple, a lot of good friends of mine down there to play, and probably went and watched the tournament about 7 or 8 times. So that was, and the last time I played there, I was even par going to 15T, the par 5, and we got rained out.
Oh,
yeah, there were big thunderstorms and a big storm rolling in. The skies were still blue, but all the caddies came down the hill in their golf carts to get everybody off the golf course. And then about 45 minutes or an hour later, the skies just opened up and we got rained out. But that was kind of a cool memory. And that was with my dad as well.
You've also recently got to play in a tournament that supposed to Mike Bellotti's MDA golf tournament. You were alongside Rich Brooks and some other Oregon guys. Talk about playing in that event.
Yeah, it's really cool. Mike's one of our former our running back coach, Gary Campbell. His son had muscular dystrophy. I just kind of got chills and goosebumps through my body. He's since passed. I mean, he way outlived the projected length of life for that. But anyways, Mike started up that tournament. I think this year was maybe year 30, 31 years he's been doing that. And it's a fantastic event. Great fundraiser. A lot of the former Oregon coaches, Nick Aliotti, who was a longtime defensive coordinator there, and Mike Bellotti was there. Of course, Dan Lanning attended as well. And we play the event at Eugene Country Club, which is one of the top 100 courses in the country. I used to be a member there. So it's a great cause, and we had a blast. So it's well worth it. And it's nice to support some of our former coaches.
Chris, before I let you go, you talked a moment ago about coaching a bunch of young kids nowadays. Talk about what you're doing now, and for parents that have a young up-and-coming quarterback that could use someone like Chris Miller's tutelage, how can they reach you and find you?
Yeah, I actually do some private training. And like I mentioned, we're in the NIL space with a company called NILX. You can go to nilx.com and kind of check us out on there. And also, I am on Instagram at Chris M. NILX. So that's my Instagram, Chris M. NILX. We're representing football players. We're going to represent young ladies and girls flag football, softball, basketball, soccer. We're going to get in men's basketball and baseball and do some other sports as well. So we're not just casting our net in the football pool. We're going to try to represent athletes all across the country in different sports and help them educate them and their parents through the process and help them get their full value for name, image, likeness, because it's a new world out there. And in terms of private training, they can message me on Instagram as well if they're interested. But I do about 10 to 12 kids a year privately. Then I get out and do a bunch of football camps as well. So it keeps me around football and keeps me young, training these young guys. And I'm very blessed. It's a great game we all got to be a part of, and appreciate you guys having me on, man.
Chris, it's always a privilege to get to spend some time with you. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your evening to come back and be a part of the show. Hopefully we get the opportunity to catch up with you again, maybe a little bit later on in the season.
Sounds great. It's always a pleasure, and congratulations to being a top 3, top 5 show. You've done great work for many years. I appreciate you and Bob very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
You too, Chris. Thank you.
See you, Chris.
Bye-bye.
That's the great Chris Miller, folks. Again, you can find him online at nilx.com. At Chris M. NILX is where you're going to find him on Instagram. He has been a wonderful friend for many years over on Thursday Night Tailgate. He is a fantastic individual and was a really good quarterback as well. And clearly, if you were even par going into 15 at Augusta National, a pretty darn good golfer as well. So I'll catch up with Chris a little bit later on the year. We'll talk a little bit more football, get into a little bit more of the golf scene with him as well. He is just like I say, he's in our guest Hall of Fame on Thursday Night Tailgate. And if you listen to this interview, you'll understand exactly why that's the case. That is the great Chris Miller, folks. Just a wonderful individual. You can, again, find him at nilx.com is the website. At Chris M. NILX is where you can find him on Instagram. And a wonderful player, right? I mean, all those years that he played for the Falcons and around the NFL, a fantastic football player. He has been a great friend of ours over on Thursday Night Tailgate, a member of our guest Hall of Fame. You can see why in this interview, why we think so highly of him, why we appreciate him so much. Not only a great player, but obviously a great golfer as well. Look, you're not even par at Augusta National getting onto the 15th tee if you're not a heck of a player. So we need to talk a little bit more about that. But hopefully we get the privilege of having Chris on a little bit later on the season, get into more of his career, more of his teaching, catch up on the Oregon Ducks and the teams that he played for, and touch on golf a little bit more as well. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this week's edition of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks again to Tom Patry, Jane Crafter, Gus Frerotte, and Chris Miller for joining me this week. Scheduled to join me next week are former president of the PGA of America, now president of Golf Nation, Susie Whaley will be back, as will PGA Tour legend Tom Purtzer, and one of the top LPGA teachers in the country, Megan Yonkman, will be here as well. And Megan teaches out at Bethpage, so as we look ahead to next year's Ryder Cup, it would be great to get her insights on the golf course and a lot more as well. And as I mentioned earlier with Tom, making her Next on the Tee debut with me is going to be Dr. Kathy Huff. So, folks, a lot of great stuff in store for you next week. I hope you'll come back here and be a part of the show with us. I want to thank my friends over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review for hosting this show on their site. You can find it by going to triblive.com and click on the sports section tab, and you're going to find the most recent episode right there front and center for you in the sports section. If you click on sports and then podcast, you'll come to the Next on the Tee logo. Click on that, and several of the previous episodes from this season are going to be waiting for you right there as well. Folks, I can't thank you enough for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts and coming back and making Next on the Tee a part of your weekly golf content. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.